Good morning and welcome to L&N Stadium here in Louisville, Kentucky. It is the first road game for the SMU Mustangs as a member of the ACC, and we are getting ready for SMU in Louisville at 11 o'clock today, and it'll kick off right here, and we'll have it, of course, radio-wise over on 96.7 and 1310 The Ticket. And joining me on the show today, as always, and joining me here in the booth for our Pony Up pregame show is Scott Garner, our color analyst. Welcome to Louisville, Scott.
Glad to be here. Biggest game in maybe 40 years, and we've said that a couple of times the last 2 years, Rich.
Yeah, they're taking on their team ranked 22nd in both polls this week. Louisville dropping a little bit after they lost last week to Notre Dame, but they only lost by 7 on the road, so pretty impressive for them. And it's a big test here for SMU this afternoon.
Huge test, but when you watch Louisville and watch them against Notre Dame, they've competed really well. Notre Dame won the trenches, I thought, for most of the game, but you come away from that game thinking this is a very winnable game for SMU, and as well as the Mustangs have played the last 2 games, would not shock me to see us come in here and upend number 22.
Well, before we talk too much more about Louisville, we'll certainly have a lot on the Cardinals today. Let's talk a little bit about last week and review the Mustangs' big entrance into the ACC, a 42-16 win over Florida State last Saturday night. We only thought it was an amazing night at Ford Stadium 2 weeks ago when TCU was there for a big SMU win. But, man, what a crazy night that was last Saturday night, and to win your first ever ACC game.
Extremely crazy game, an unbelievable game, really. Second straight game now that not only have we scored on the opening drive, but we go down and get points. We consume 5 minutes of the first quarter. We take control of the game. The offensive line continues to win battle after battle to begin these games. That's so important, even more so than scoring, I think. But the O-line was great in pass protection last week, and not just firing off the ball, but really keeping the heat off KJ. I think that's so important, to keep the heat off Jennings. That goal line stand right before the half was, I thought, incredible. But there were 2 parts of that game, Rich, that I thought stood out and really separated us. It was, remember when there was the penalty on the punt. When we go 3 and out, they commit the penalty. We took control of the football again, and we not only ran the football, but we did it in such dominant fashion. I said to you on the air, Rich, I would be shocked if this ball goes into the air anytime soon. We not only ran it the next couple of times, we ran it the next 8 times and punched the ball in the end zone. It was when Smith had the 13-yard run. He had a 17-yard run. Daniels had a 7-yard run. Jennings ran for 9. It was a dominant performance at that point. But then, if you'll remember this part of the game, in early fourth quarter action, this SMU defense, they pressured DJU 5 straight passing plays in a row. 5 straight times we got pressure and knocked him down 3 of the 5 times. We were swarming. Kobe Wilson gets the pick 6. It was an incredible start to the fourth quarter. We put him away like an absolute champion, and we really made a statement that game, Rich.
You mentioned, too, that face mask penalty on the punt. That just kind of is what this team has been doing the last several weeks, taking advantage of all their opportunities. I mean, look, when that face mask occurred, they didn't get the ball down at, like, the red zone or anything. No. They were still on their own end of the field, but they took care of business. And, of course, the takeaways by the defense have been incredible. They lead the nation with 14 takeaways this year.
And we scored 4 times on defense.
Yes, definitely. And 1 on special teams, too, this season with a punt return by Junior. It's been a tremendous start. That defense with Scott Simons continues to get it done. They outgained Florida State last week, 458 to 285 yards. Seminoles only had 112 in the second half. And that was a game. You know, it's 14-9.
No doubt.
At halftime. But the takeaways just made the difference there in the second half. They opened up with the Ahmad Walker interception. You mentioned the pick 6 from Kobe, and they kept going on the defensive side.
We did, and we started to swarm. And Rhett Lashley, after the game, said he was so proud of the team and was kind of awestruck by the way that we took a hold of the game and put them away. And you go back to the start of the fourth quarter, that's really where it began, the swarming. And we almost played exclusively zone defense behind it, Rich. And we never got spread out. And they had no remedy for it. We were that good defensively. Just hats off to this team. Going to have to do that today. Going to have to really play well in the back end, on the back end of your defense today to get it done on the road.
Elijah Roberts did not have a sack somehow last Saturday. But he was the most disruptive force on the field. He had 6 quarterback hurries. DJ Uiagalelei, I think, didn't want to get hit because he was throwing a lot of them away.
Yeah.
Elijah, I thought, was fantastic, as was the rest of the D-line. And then Kevin Jennings, another great performance from him. 16 of 23, career-high 254 yards, 3 touchdowns. How about this, Scott? In his 2 starts this season, 71.4% completion percentage, 5 touchdowns, and no interceptions.
Boy, he was really locked in that third quarter. I thought that was the best quarter that he's played all season without question. He made 2 tight window throws to R.J. Maryland. Both of those touchdown passes were incredible. And how about that deep ball to Smith on the fade route? That was impressive. But early in the game, I thought the biggest play of the first half offensively, when we really needed it, Jennings got out of the pocket and then without his feet being set was able to hit Bailey on the run. Remember that when he extended the play, hit him, got his shoulder square, kept his eyes downfield. It was a money throw right there. He has been fantastic. He ran the quarterback draw, I thought, really well. And it was a play where that draw was supposed to bounce, and it did to an extent, but I thought he finished off the run really well. The one concern that I do have is that when Jennings begins to run now, when he's taking a high percentage of very hard hits at the end of some of these runs. That makes me a little nervous.
In the backfield, Brashard Smith continues to do a tremendous job. 19 carries, 129 yards, and a touchdown. That's 3 100-yard games for Brashard.
Yep.
And thankfully, a little more help this week. L.J. Johnson should return after missing last week with a concussion. But, man, Roderick Daniels Jr., I was very impressed with. As this is a wide receiver who's played a little bit of running back. Last week, he did not take a single snap at wide receiver and kind of bailed the team out at some points in the backfield.
He did. And I thought he did a great job catching the ball, too. Had a couple for 20, had a long of 14, got the 18 yards after the catch. But, no, there's no question that Daniels it's very hard to put a wide receiver at that running back position and expect them to produce right off the bat because running back is so difficult. Number one, you got to learn how to pass protect. But number two, you've got to know how to get vertical, when to hit the hole, when to be patient, and when to cut it upfield. That's a very hard art to learn. But he looks anything like a first-year running back. He has been splendid.
So is Brashard Smith, by the way.
Yeah, both of these converted wide receivers have done a pretty good job.
It's
Rich.
amazing how well they have done in the backfield this year.
I think it says a lot about the coaching staff.
I think it also says a lot about the offensive line.
That too.
They played what's likely a professional front four last week in Florida State, and I thought they controlled the line of scrimmage, pass protecting, and in running the football.
I did too. Really thought Ja'Kai Clark had a good game, really aggressive. Early in the game, he had a couple of fan blocks that I thought sprung us for a couple of big runs, and he and Osborne double-teamed really well early in that game. We're just working so much better as a unit since Rhett Lashley made the big change a couple of weeks ago.
All right, so today, SMU playing at Louisville. The Cardinals 3-1, 1-0 in league play. They lost by 1 score at Notre Dame last week. They got a veteran quarterback, Tyler Shuck. How veteran? He's 25. He's been in college for 7 years now, and he's having his best season for sure. 1,114 yards, 11 touchdowns, and 1 interception through their first 4.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that this is going to be a little bit different Louisville offense than the offenses that we faced before. They're going to run a pro-style offense, which really is a lot better for him. This style much better for him compared to what he did at Texas Tech and at Oregon earlier in his career. But they're going to line up, run some I formation, run some play action. They like to do a lot off of play action. They're going to personnel you to death. I remember early in that game against Notre Dame, they had it like 1st and 10 at their own 30. They lined up 2 fullbacks next to the quarterback and then a pistol back. You just don't see that very often. So they're going to do a lot of things to confuse us. But Shuck, so good. 11 touchdowns, 1 interception. Not only does he have a strong arm, but he's got an accurate arm throwing the deep ball. And I think that's going to be a key to the game today, maybe the biggest key. If we can't get pressure on Shuck consistently, can we cover on the back end? That's what Louisville does so well. Their offensive line really good at keeping him upright. They've given up, 5 sacks, I think, all year. Now, they've played 1 less game than SMU, but yet still they do an outstanding job of making certain that he has plenty of time. And listen, there were a couple times where he was pressured, and he took some big hits, letting go of the football and stepping into throws and making a big touchdown pass last week against Notre Dame. He may be the toughest quarterback we see this year.
Good receiving crew, too, led by Ja'Cory Brooks, who he's an Alabama transfer, had 23 catches for 368 yards, 4 touchdowns this year. And then Colin Lacey had a collarbone injury and missed the first 3 games last week in his debut for Louisville, 5 catches for 71 yards. This guy at South Alabama last season caught 91 passes.
He may be better than Brooks. He was in the spring. I don't know how he'll perform today, but he's a big piece for them. Against Notre Dame, he had some really good runs after the catch. We're talking about Colin Lacey, number 5. He's he wears number 5. But this is a guy with tremendous hands, even with blanket coverage, made a one-hand catch on a dead sprint fade last week against Notre Dame. He's really, really solid. He's a very good complementary to Brooks.
SMU in Louisville today, 11 a.m. is the kick. Radio-wise, we have it on 96.7 and 1310. The ticket beginning at 10:30 with the pregame show, also available on the SMU app. I'm going to talk to Elijah Roberts as well as head coach Brett Lashley on the pregame show today. So, again, 10:30 is when we'll get started on the radio side. We told you something about the Mustangs' big win over Florida State last week. Let's look at some of the highlights.
Okay, thank you for that update. Thank you. Well, guess what? The ninth grader found a way to get in the party.
SMU has agreed to join the ACC.
How was the audio to start the show?
Like Dallas. It's too dumb. At first it was funny. Now it's stupid. It's too dumb.
I'm looking forward to the first time that SMU plays Florida State. What if SMU beats Florida State? Florida State are running around going, well, we need way more money so we can compete with the Georgias and the Ohio States of the world. SMU's going, we don't need any money at all to beat Florida State.
Right? In the presence of blood, that means a struggle had to take place. Some pain, right? Some trauma. But most importantly, what had to have happened is there had to be some kind of sacrifice. Blood equals sacrifice. To get what you want in this world, man, there's going to be sacrifice. To be the man of God you need to be, there's going to be sacrifice. I promise you on Saturday, there will be blood.
Mustangs will watch the kick. Sail over the head of Knowlesbury Ford. Jennings bails to the far side, going to shoot it downfield. That's Bailey. That's Eby, the tight end in motion. They're going to hand to Smith. He'll run right. And he scores. On their first possession, a 13-yard touchdown run from Rashard Smith, and SMU on the board first. To his left, throw back, and intercepted. Jonathan McGill. Daniels will flip flipper back to Jennings, and wide open, and it's caught. Jordan Hudson, touchdown. Moving on to the lane with pressure coming. In trouble, incomplete. And he had to cut it loose. 4th and goal for Louis Underlay. He'll keep it left side. No, sir. Jafari Harvey was the first Mustang to get to Louis Underlay. And that will be that for the first half.
Outstanding. Good. All right, let's do it again. They start with the ball. Let's go get this ball back. Good?
Hey, good first half. Good first half. That was physical. That was nasty. That was our standard. We got to do it again for another half. We cannot allow them to be more physical and play harder than us in the second half. You guys ready to win?
Second and a short 5. Little play fake. Louis Underlay lines up. Off the deflection, Ahmad Walker's got it. And he's thrown out of bounds around the 10. Here's Jennings looking, corner Maryland. Caught. And held on for the touchdown. Florida State 2 for 6 on third down. goal line, which results in a touchdown. Pressure coming. Intercepted. Kobe Wilson to pick. Trying to take it across midfield. Does, and still on his feet. Out of 2 tackles, and Wilson will score. SMU's going to finish with right at about 460 yards, Tom.
Not many folks are doing that against this Florida State defense.
And they have now scored a victory here tonight.
Coach said it's gonna be blood, dog. Someone who knows what it's supposed to look like here, Mr. Eric Dickerson, you want to say anything?
Oh, most definitely. You guys made us proud tonight. This is a serious football team. Yes, sir. This is how it was when we played back in the 80s. Thank you guys for making us proud because we've been waiting 30 years for a day like this.
Congratulations on your first ACC win.
A fun night at Ford Stadium last week as the SMU Mustangs win their first ever ACC game over Florida State. They go for their second ACC win today against a top 25 team here in Louisville. Right now it's time for our segment we call Rhett to the Point. Some clips from SMU head coach Rhett Lashey. These come from his Wednesday Pony Express show that we do each week at 7 o'clock at Ozona Grill and Bar. 4th defensive touchdown was scored last week by Kobe Wilson on the pick six. That leads the nation, and Rhett said it's obviously huge help when you score when you don't possess the football.
Scott and I were talking just today. We got tackled at the 1 foot line against TCU, and we got tackled at the 3 against BYU. So we were close to 2 more getting in there. And, you know, I mean, those things kind of come in bunches. You know, we didn't have any in the first game. Then we kind of got it going against Houston Christian, and then it's just gone. And there's a lot of momentum. Our guys play so hard. We're so aggressive. We're stopping the run, and I'm just telling you that changes everything. When you stop the run, you make somebody one-dimensional. They can no longer control the game. When you stop the run, you get them in 3rd and long, advantageous, rush the passer, tip balls, overthrows, all that stuff happens. And so they've done a great job of that. But we started it last year being very opportunistic. They've carried it over into this year, and it's a huge reason that we've won the last 2 games.
Obviously, the turnovers making a massive effect for the SMU Mustangs. The defense as a whole having a massive effect on what's going on. Lots of blitzing that we saw, a lot of exotic looks last week, and Rhett says that his D coordinator, Scott Simons, pretty much has free reign over that side of the ball.
Oh, yeah, he's like a mad scientist, and I was actually talking with Ricky Huntley and Maurice Crum today after practice in the locker room about it, and, you know, the stuff that they've got for this week, it's the same way it is every week for a defensive coordinator. It's kind of like an offensive guy getting his trick plays and shots. You know, they're like, ooh, 3rd down and long. So, you know, there's a saying in football, especially on defense, you stop the run, you can have some fun. If you stop the run, you get them 3rd and 7 or longer, here we go. So it allows his creativity as a ball coach on the defensive side. And I've always thought this about Scott. He kind of calls the game as a defensive coordinator kind of like an offensive coordinator calls the game. You know, he's got an aggressive and almost like a scheming mentality where a lot of defense coordinators like, here's my calls, I'm going to call them and adjust out to whatever you do. And he's a little more calculated than that.
I like that. You stop the run. We can have some
fun. I like that, too.
Might hear that again on our show. The offense, 2nd in the ACC, running the football at better than 200 yards per game. Rhett tells us why.
I think our O-line deserves a ton of credit because our O-line and our tight ends, like, you see the explosive runs. Everybody can see that. But I don't want to call them bad runs, our not great runs are going for 1, 2, 3 yards, 4 yards. Like, they're not allowing penetration. We're not having a lot of negative plays. And that's the biggest deal of any is, you know, negative plays are what sets you back on offense, whether it be via a penalty, a sack, or a tackle for loss. And so I think they're doing a great job of covering up the first level, as Coop was saying, and getting our guys in space and get them to the second level and letting their ability take over. But when we can run the ball, we can now control the game. And, you know, I think that's what you've been able to see. It's allowed us to be efficient throwing the football. and play with some tempo.
Today here in Louisville, the Mustangs dealing with a veteran quarterback, Tyler Shuck, in his 7th season of college football, and a guy that Rhett Lashley has been very dangerous and very efficient this year.
I think he's like 11-to-1 touchdown-interception ratio, playing really, really at a high level. You know, if you kind of think when we were going to play TCU, we knew the quarterback and 3-receiver combo was really good. They've got that.
Yeah.
They got Ja'Cory Brooks, who we know well because he's from South Florida when we were at Miami, transfer from Alabama, playing at a high level. They got a couple other really good wideouts. They got speed. And so when you got a guy like that playing with a lot of confidence, and you got a play caller like Jeff Brom who knows how to develop quarterbacks, knows how to put them in good positions for success, it's a really, really stiff test for our defense.
Yep. That's Rhett to the Point. It is brought to you by Origin Bank. Origin Bank knows what strong teams can accomplish. By working together, Origin's trusted advisors help you keep your financial goals within reach. Get the right people on your team today at originbank.com. Member FDIC. Kickoff coming up at 11 a.m. today here at L&N Stadium. I know it's on the big ESPN TV-wise, but be sure you turn that sound down so you can listen to us on 96.7 and 1310. The Ticket with the Call. Scott Garner and I, along with our third member of the crew who joins me now here on the Pony Up pregame show. It is our sideline reporter, Steve Lansdale, and this is our view from the sideline today. And the Mustangs today, pass protection is going to be very important, obviously, against Louisville. Those ends, Ashton Gelati and Tramel Logan, have been fantastic for them.
Yeah, this is probably the best pass rush that SMU has faced this year. Louisville's got 10 sacks in 4 games, which is not overwhelming. Even when they haven't gotten home to the quarterback, they have applied a ton of pressure this year consistently through those first 4 games. And as you mentioned, Ashton Gelati and Tramel Logan have been an absolute handful. Logan leads the team with 3 sacks. Gelati now has 23 in his career, which is 9th in school history. There are defensive ends that rely on power and others that rely on speed and others that rely on technique and pass rush moves. These guys kind of have a combination of all 3. And you mentioned how SMU shuffled its offensive line before the TCU game, and the lines looked really good the last couple of weeks. It needs to continue that today. They gave up 3 sacks in 2 games, all to Florida State. They ran for 442 yards in the big wins over TCU and Florida State. And so they need to have excellent protection today, whether that means helping out more with tight ends or running backs. They've got to keep Gelati and Logan away from Kevin Jennings and also open up some running lanes.
And Gelati's a guy who's going to play kind of like Elijah Roberts does from SMU. Mm-hmm. He'll play on the edge, usually at the left end spot, but we'll see him move inside, and you know that's when they're going to bring it.
Right, and that's one of the signs of a really exceptional player. When they can move him around to get different angles to try to create those mismatches, he's the guy that they want to spring free in any way they can. So to say that he is a priority for the SMU protection scheme is an understatement.
All right, the running back rotation. First off, we got a rotation, I think, here this afternoon.
Nice, isn't it?
A good start. Brashard Smith, of course, has been fantastic, over 500 yards through 5 games. L.J. Johnson expected to be back today from the concussion that had him out last week.
Right, and at the beginning of the year, we were wondering if there are enough carries to go around with all the running backs SMU had. And then Kamar Wheaton went down, and Rooster Knighton went down, and Zane Miners went down, and then L.J. Johnson missed time. And remember, last week, Brashard Smith left in the second quarter to go get some medical attention, which necessitated Roderick Daniels playing running back for the rest of the day. Fortunately, Smith seems to be okay. Johnson is back. But they need to run the ball to make the Louisville defense sort of play honestly, not just pin their ears back and come after Kevin Jennings. So how the running game gets untracked. SMU's run the ball very well, needs to have another good running game today, and how they rotate those running backs, how they disperse the carries will dictate a lot of what kind of success SMU will have, not only today, but going forward toward the rest of the season.
I vote for more Brashard Smith. He's been extremely impressive in the first 5
You
weeks.
could argue he's been the best player on the team for the first 5 games, and yes, you won't get any argument on that.
But certainly L.J. Johnson's going to be a nice addition today, too.
Absolutely.
Because especially you get goal line and short yardage situations, he can help out there. That's Steve Lansdale, our view from the sideline. He'll be back with us here shortly when we pick our games on the show. But right now, it is time to meet the enemy here on the Pony Up pregame show that's presented by Origin Bank. Scott Garner back with me here as we look ahead to the third all-time meeting between SMU and Louisville. And not a lot of people probably remember the first 2. They were in 83 and 84.
That's right.
SMU won both of those. Man, this guy is a legend. in Louisville that coaches the Cardinals. Jeff Brom, who played here, his brother, Brian, the offensive coordinator, he was a quarterback here. Their dad, Oscar, was a quarterback and a longtime high school coach in the area. These guys are legends here in Louisville for sure.
He's a legend, and one of the things that makes him so good and why he's such a legend is because he's become a really good head coach. And you look at a guy like Tyler Shuck, and this is a guy who was good. He was good at Texas Tech, and he was good at Oregon, but he's become really good now, and that's really the strength of this head coach. Brom was a good quarterback here at Louisville, but he is an even better coach. You just look at what Shuck has done. We mentioned the 11 touchdowns to 1 INT, but he's learned how to step into throws. He's learned the decisions. He's just become an elite decision maker. There's no doubt about it. He's got great touch on the ball. Shuck not afraid to take a sack. That's a great quality to have. But again, he'll take a hit when he steps into those throws. He keeps his eyes upfield under pressure, and he's not under a lot of pressure because the offensive line has done a great job. They've only given up 5 sacks so far this year. But Shuck now has become an elite quarterback who throws a very accurate deep ball.
One more note on Brom. He's been to 2 straight conference championship games. Last year was his first season here at Louisville. They went to the ACC championship game. 2 years ago, he was at Purdue, and they were in the Big Ten championship game. Sure. But on Tyler Shuck, you mentioned it, the veteran that he is. Watching the Notre Dame game from last week, I was so impressed with his arm talent and his arm strength.
Yep.
1 touchdown pass he threw, he was rolling straight to his left, stopped, drop down sidearm, and it was a bullet right into the back of the end zone.
He can throw it from multiple angles. I'm not sure. That might have been the play where he had a delayed blitzer right at him, and he took an absolute shot. He did that a couple of times last week, and that showed me a lot of toughness. To be able to step into that and to make that throw and put it right where he needed to in the back of the end zone, that was really impressive, Rich.
They're still trying to figure things out at running back. They've got a freshman, Isaac Brown, who made his first start at Notre Dame last week, had a season-high 72 yards. He leads them with 245 yards through 4 games, but they've got an injury to one of their prime guys there, and they're kind of shuffling around trying to figure out their run game.
You're going to be shocked, but number 25, who runs the football for them, he's their best running back. He's a true freshman.
Yeah.
This guy is really young, 5'9", 190, out of Florida. Most dynamic running back that they have, no question about it. This is a guy that caught a 10-yard touchdown pass on a circle route. He's got great hands. This was last week against Notre Dame, but he's stocky, plays with great balance, but really good hands out of the backfield, and does a good job in pass protection.
Their defense only allows 95 yards rushing per game, but their competition is definitely ramped up. They opened with Austin Peay and then Jacksonville State. Then they got into league play with Georgia Tech and then Notre Dame last week. But we just talked about it with Steve. Aston Gelati, Tramel Logan, their ends are really solid with 4 combined sacks between those two, and they create a ton of pressure off the edge.
The one thing that I noticed, they're really aggressive. I think Rhett Lashley talked about this, but I think it says a lot when Notre Dame lined up and ran a screen pass on the very first game, because that's something that is generally set up. That's a counter to pressure that seems to build during a game, but Notre Dame ran that screen right off the bat. So when you watch them on tape, Louisville very aggressive in that linebacking core, and also the safeties sometimes have a tendency to over-pursue, but they are very good on the back end. They're hard to pressure. That quarterback is very hard to pressure, but you look at from the defensive perspective, they're really good on the back end, and if we have a hard time getting pressure from our defensive line, I'm a little bit concerned about Shuck today. He's that good.
Their best corner, Quincy Riley, missed last week with injury. He's expected to play today. This guy has 14 interceptions in his career combined at Louisville and at Middle Tennessee. I'm going to give you my stat of the week now, Scott.
Okay.
It is 63.
63. Okay.
That is the point differential SMU has in scoring off turnovers. They've given up, they have scored 70 points off turnovers, and the only points they have given up off turnovers was after a fumble. TCU later scored a touchdown. It helps that they're a +7 in turnover margin in general. They lead the nation with 14 takeaways. The defense leads with 4 touchdowns. That accounts for 29 of the points. They went for 2 on one of those. But the 70 points, think about this, Scott. That is an average of 5 points they score every time they turn somebody over.
It's
you can't score more than 8 when
I
you
know,
turn
right.
somebody over.
The 63, that's a huge number. But I think maybe an even more impressive number, like the second biggest team, the second most is like 32.
30,
38. It's in the
38,
30s.
South Alabama,
Yeah.
38.
So that's unbelievable.
By the way, Florida State's last. They're minus 38.
Oh,
Does that surprise
not
you?
surprising, no.
So there's my stat of the week,
No.
63, the point differential.
Hey, by the way,
off turnovers.
can I add to that? I have a number, too, that I thought was very odd.
Okay.
This Louisville team, 12. The number of points that they permitted in the second halves total this year.
Wow.
That's unbelievable. So let's watch for that today.
All right, we'll watch for that. The Mustangs playing here in Louisville today, 11 a.m. kick. Again, 96.7 and 1310. The ticket is where we will have the radio broadcast. Time for our Pick'em Challenge that is brought to you by Origin Bank. Scott and I had a good week last week.
Yeah.
We were 5-0. Both of us were.
Oh.
I'm 18-7 on the year. You're 15-10. Steve, bringing up the rear, 3-2 last week. 13-12 on the year. We've got 5 games that we will pick straight up here today, and we'll start with a top 25 matchup down in College Station. Number 9, Missouri at number 25, Texas A&M. Tigers 4-0. The Aggies 4-1. Their loss was the opener against Notre Dame. Steve, Missouri looking to go 5-0 for the second straight year.
They are looking to go 5-0, and they're playing a tough team in A&M. Texas A&M lost the opener to Notre Dame and has won 4 straight since. Missouri probably has the better offense. Texas A&M has the better defense. College Station is a very weird place where weird things tend to favor the Aggies, and I think the Aggies get the upset today.
All right. Scott?
Well, first of all, I don't think you made nearly enough of that 5-0 mark that you and I had last week. That is not the games last year were so much easier. I think.
Wait a minute. When Rich has a good week, you scold him for pointing out his own. But now that you're 5-0,
now
we're going to jump up.
That's it. You see how this is working here?
Yeah, I see.
Well, anyway, no, A&M, hey, they're ranked 25th. Listen, they are better than number 25. I really believe that. They're fast. They're physical. They're faster and physical than a lot of teams that they played so far this year. The Aggies, sometimes they don't deliver in the clutch, but I think at home today they do. Give me the Aggies.
That Missouri defense has been really stout this year. They're third in total defense. They only allow 127 yards passing a game. A&M probably going with their freshman quarterback again, Marcel Reed. I'll take Missouri on the road this afternoon. Also at 11 o'clock, we're going to go ACC heavy the rest of the way here. At 11, we've got Boston College plays at Virginia. BC 4-1 on the year. They've won their only league game. It was against Florida State. Virginia 3-1. They're 1-0 in the league. BC last started the season 2-0 in conference play in 2007, and they haven't started 5-1 since 2008, Steve.
Boston College is a very different team when Thomas Castellanos is back in the lineup. He was out last week. He's back today. And if he's fully healthy, at the risk of bringing up a sore subject, SMU fans know exactly what he's like as a runner.
Oh, yeah.
But he is a much better deep ball passer this year than he has been in past years. Boston College gets the victory over Virginia.
Yeah,
right,
that's
Scott?
a big if, though. I don't know if he is 100%. I'll be shocked if he is. We'll
Right,
see.
sure.
You
I
know.
mean, he's playing, but
Yes. But, hey, BC, they should win the line of scrimmage today. But that was a gutty comeback last week against Western Kentucky. I don't know if you watched the end of that ball game, but without Castellanos, and he makes them go. There's no doubt about it. I'm not sure he's 100%. But I think he'll be good enough today. Give me Boston College.
Boston College defensive end Donovan Ezaraku, who we saw a lot of in that bowl game last year, too. He leads the nation in sacks. The Eagles have not won in Charlottesville since 2017. I think that'll change today. I'll take Boston College on the road. 6 p.m. tonight. It's 15th-ranked Clemson at Florida State. The Tigers 3-1. They're 2-0 in the league. FSU, we just saw them llast week. They're 1-4. They're 1-3 in the conference. How about Dabo Swinney going for the ACC record 174th win, and he could do it on Bobby Bowden Field and surpass Bobby Bowden in this game?
all right, this is going to be – I'm going to dip into some analytics here. Yes,
Okay.
there's the Dabo Swinney aspect going for the record, but stay with me on this. Clemson, since they got whacked by Georgia, has looked really good, and Florida State's awful.
That's some analytics you got
Yeah.
there?
That's it. That's the whole analysis.
I thought they looked great when they got whipped earlier this year against Georgia. Everybody said, "Oh, they did last night." They looked great. What are you talking about? I thought they played really well. That's a really good Clemson
That's
team.
a Clemson pick down there, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
You could read between the lines there.
I could,
There you
yes.
go. Well done, Rich.
Hey, Mike Norvell, he's going to have a new quarterback. Whether or not he wants to or not, that remains to be seen. But he did say in the post-game press conference last week after he lost to us that he was going to make that change anyway after what he saw at DJU last week. But FSU, this is a situation where it's man against himself. That's what it has really become for them. I don't think they've got any confidence, and I think Cade Klubnik's one of the better quarterbacks I've seen. He's got a 12-2 touchdowns to INT ratio. Give me Clemson in that one.
One of these two teams has played in the ACC title game 14 of the last 15 years. Only one has a shot this year, and it's the team that's going to win tonight, Clemson.
Yes.
7 o'clock tonight, Duke at Georgia Tech. We'll see Duke here coming up at the end of the month against SMU. The Blue Devils, really surprising, 5-0. They won their first league game in a big comeback over North Carolina last week. Georgia Tech 3-2, 1-2 in the league. They lost to Louisville 2 weeks ago, Steve.
I think both teams are better than expected this year. And it's not like rallying over North Carolina would be if it were on the basketball court, in which case they'd be throwing a parade in Durham because that's who you love to hate. But they still hate the Tar Heels. That's a big win. So part of this is how do they respond to that win? Do they have a letdown after beating their rival, or does that build them up going forward? Malik Murphy, the transfer from Texas, really nice quarterback, doing a good job under Johnny Brewer, the former SMU assistant.
Yep.
But he's got all the tools in the world. Big, strong guy, can throw it a mile and a half, runs well, but he's also a little bit inconsistent at times. Georgia Tech gets the win.
All right, Scott.
Yeah, Duke, obviously they're undefeated, but the only real team they played this year is UNC. They beat them by 1 point last time. Duke's they have athletes, but they're being really undisciplined. Last 2 games they've been undisciplined. Linemen running up field, not controlling their gaps. Linebackers over pursuing way too much. Georgia Tech, they're going to win it between the ears, I think, today. Give me Georgia Tech.
Wow.
Yeah.
Duke has 17 sacks this season, and Georgia Tech is one of 3 teams in the nation that has not yielded a sack.
What gives today?
They're going to give up some sacks.
Okay.
And Duke will make it to 6-0 for only the 7th time since 1940.
Wow.
I'll take Duke
Okay.
in this one tonight. And then game day is out there in Berkeley today at 9. They started that show at 6 a.m., by the way.
Really? Wow.
That's what time the show goes on the air. It's 8th-ranked Miami at Cal tonight at 9:30. The Hurricanes are 5-0. They won their only league game. Golden Bears 3-1. Their one loss was to Florida State a couple of weeks ago, and they've had a week off since then. Boy, Steve, Miami survived last week thanks to a controversial overturned touchdown call on a Hail Mary against Virginia Tech.
They did survive. Virginia Tech's not a bad team, so take it for what it's worth. I don't know if you saw Marshawn Lynch, the former Cal star, was on Pat McAfee's show this week and was asked what Miami can expect when they get to Berkeley. He made a comment about a lot of smoke that had nothing to do with wildfires in California that he said might be swirling around in the stadium. That being said, that coupled with the fact that Miami's got to travel about 7 hours to get to Berkeley, that is a long, long trip. But Cam Ward, Miami quarterback, has put himself in the Heisman conversation. Jaden Ott, Cal's running back, is really, really good, but he's not enough to beat the Hurricanes. Miami wins.
Okay. Man, you watch that Miami-Virginia Tech game. Man, both teams have great quarterbacks. They really do. That Cam Ward is fantastic. But the O-line for Miami, super strong. Should keep Ward clean today, I think. Cal, they're much improved, but Miami, it's going to be tough to beat. Give me the Hurricanes today.
Yeah, Hurricanes quarterback Cam Ward has thrown for at least 300 yards and at least 3 touchdowns in all 5 games. That's why he's one of the Heisman favorites right now. I'll take Miami in that one as well. That's our Pick'em Challenge brought to you by Origin Bank. Origin Bank knows what strong teams can accomplish by working together. Origin's trusted advisors help you keep your financial goals within. Right people on your team today at Origin Bank, member FDIC. Coming up at 11 o'clock today here at L&N Stadium in Louisville, it is SMU and Louisville, the first road game in the ACC for the Mustangs. Scott, give us a couple of keys to success for the Ponies this afternoon.
Keys for SMU today. Number 1, cannot turn the ball over. That is absolutely, positively the number 1 key today. Keep the ball out of Louisville's hands. They are dangerous with the ball. They're 17th in the nation in total offense, 476 yards per game. Cannot turn the ball over today. Key number 2, have to limit explosives. The explosive plays, Britt Lashley talks about this all the time, but today particularly, you cannot give up the explosives. The one thing that concerns me is that Georgia Tech, they could not put pressure on Chuck like they wanted to. That O-line for Louisville was really good at keeping pressure off him, and that means that if you can't pressure him, you better be really good on the back end. So today, you got to limit the explosives in the back end. Our secondary has to have their best game of the year today. But Chuck, 76 of 117, 11 touchdowns, 1 INT, an elite decision maker at that quarterback spot for Louisville. He doesn't force passes, keeps his eyes upfield. He does everything that you want a quarterback to do, and you have to run the ball. This goes back every week. You need to, but if you need to keep the ball away from your opponent, you're going to have to run the football. Good news, SMU. I think we have averaged 200. It was at 230 a game, I think, with Jennings at quarterback. We've rushed the ball on average about 230 yards per game. So if that happens today, I think the Mustangs have a great shot to pull off the upset today.
Going to be a beautiful day here in Louisville. Low 80s, partly cloudy skies. Might have a plane fly overhead a time or two since the airport's right there, but it'll be a fun one. SMU in 22nd ranked Louisville. Join us over on 96.7 and 1310 The Ticket or on the SMU app. 10:30 is the pregame show. I'll talk to Elijah Roberts as well as to head coach Brett Lashley. And then 11 a.m. is our kickoff. Again, 96.7, 1310 The Ticket or on the SMU app. Thanks so much for joining us here today. We'll have this show again in 2 weeks from Stanford at a time to be determined. For John Smith, our engineer, back behind me, and Steve Lansdale, I'm Rich Phillips. It's all pony up.